This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Starting today's show is Justin Waggoner, Extension Beef Cattle Specialist, informing people about an upcoming 30-hour OSHA course for feedyard, dairy, and agriculture workers. Jenny Ifft K-State Flinchbaugh Agricultural Policy Chair continues the show by discussing what has come from price discovery. She also shares a quick Farm Bill update. K-State Dairy Specialist Mike Brouk completes today's show by saying how one key ingredient, replacement heifers, may be missing from dairy herd expansion. That's something he says to take into account when considering participation in USDA's Dairy Margin Coverage Program. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show discussing an upcoming training with Extension Beef Cattle Specialist from Garden City, Justin Waggoner. Justin, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
Justin, can you tell us a little bit about what is this upcoming training?
Sure. So the upcoming training we're talking about is our K-State OSHA 30 course for agricultural workers. And so what the OSHA 30 actually stands for is that's 30 hours of actual safety training for employees. And so to accomplish that, this program actually occurs over 4 days. So it's not just necessarily one session. It's a little bit larger commitment with that. So we'll start this training kind of later on in March. I think our first session is March 29th. And then every other Friday for the subsequent 4 sessions, we'll continue on. And so it's a long day for the participants, but that's where the OSHA 30 actually comes in with on the course there, just in case anybody's curious as to what that means. There's actually OSHA 10 courses and a few other short courses that are out there, but the OSHA 30 is really kind of the standard, if you will. And what's nice about this course is any of the employees that complete it will actually receive their own OSHA 30 certification card. So that's something that they will get to take with them. This has been a really popular program for us, especially with the presence of the feedyard industry, the dairy industry, and really any agricultural worker in western Kansas. So it's just a really nice opportunity for us at K-State to be able to provide that training for those employers and employees out there as well.
And why is this training something that really is important for those employers and employees?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we maybe often lose sight of in agriculture is there's kind of this mindset that we are exempt from OSHA standards, and that's actually not the case. There's what's called the general duty clause within the OSHA standards that actually anyone who has an employee has to go about in making sure that employee is informed about the known risks and hazards that are out there. And also we have an obligation to provide those employees a safe workplace, right? And so that's one of the pieces of it is we actually do have that obligation. So, I would encourage whether you have 1 employee or 10 employees, even if you're just, kind of a farming operation that may have 1 employee, this can really be a great opportunity to get some additional training for those folks. It's very hands-on as well, too. So it is ag-focused, which is a little bit different than some of the other courses that are out there. The other part about this training that we talked about earlier is just the cost. So typically, an OSHA 30 type certification would cost anywhere from $300 to $400 for a person to take that course. Here at K-State, through our sponsorship with Hoovie Pharma, we're actually able to provide this course for about $100 per person. And so that's a really good value when you can provide something for about the third of the cost of what it would cost to get that kind of training in the industry. So we're just really excited that we're able to do that once again. This is our 3rd time that we've hosted the training, and it's really great to be able to partner with sponsors that really see value in safety for our cattle feeders as well as all of our agriculture industry in western Kansas.
And Justin, you mentioned there's 4 classes, so March 29th, April 12th, April 26th, and May 10th. And on May 10th, they get to go out and maybe get a little bit more hands-on experience and apply their knowledge.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. So one of the parts that's unique about this course where it is more agricultural focused is we'll actually go on site. Typically, we pick a local feed yard. The students will go and actually get to do a safety audit. So they're walking through the facilities. They're looking for all those hazards. And one of the things that I've gone through the course, I have my OSHA 30 certification, but one of the things I actually really enjoyed about that last session is that's what they're going to be exposed to when they go back to that home operation is, as you're walking through the mill, here's an obvious safety hazard. This is something that we should fix. And so that's a really nice piece of that training to be able to do it in a very similar environment to what those employees are going to be in. And so I really think it just becomes a nice capstone to that course of all the skills and the things we've talked about in those 3 prior sessions that tend to be classroom focused, where that last session I actually get to go hands-on, and there is always something that those students find, and there's just some really great discussion points that come out of that hands-on type exercise.
And Justin, you mentioned you've been through this class, so what were some key things that you pulled from it?
So the key things for myself with the OSHA 30 that I think I would share with any employee or maybe mid-level managers is just that burden of responsibility. That if you are a cattle manager or if you're a mill manager, you carry with you some of that responsibility for keeping those employees safe. The other piece of that is documentation. So documenting safety trainings that you have and done your due diligence in terms of informing employees, or hey, we recognized a hazard here, we've fixed it, we've put some things in motion to maybe prevent this hazard from occurring or causing risk in the future. So those are 2 big things for me that I didn't think about when I worked in the industry, as well as just that need to document those things that we were doing, and just that safety is something we have to live with every day. It very much becomes a culture. A former faculty member at K-State, Keith Bolson, many of you know him from his work in the silage world. He used to say our number 1 priority should be to send everyone home safe every day. And I think that's something that, we should also always keep in the back of our mind, is that is our number 1 priority, is to send everyone that works for us home each and every day safe. And so we just need to really go about creating that culture of safety. It's something that we have to, we don't like to think about, but it's always there, and we really need to keep that present and in the back of our mind all the time. So
we've mentioned that there's 4 different classes, and do participants have to attend all of those classes to get that certification?
Yes. So one of those obligations is that this is, based on OSHA standards, there is that obligation, if you will, to attend a minimum number of the hours of that training. So they do have to spend, I believe it's a minimum of like 27 hours of actual in the training in the seats. So we do add a little bit of a buffer there. The other thing about those standards is the course is actually capped. So there's so many people that we can actually have in the course with 1 instructor per se. So I believe our cap is around 31 people this year, or 30 persons. So the space is limited in this particular program. So I would encourage anyone that's interested in it to please sign up as soon as possible, so that we, and if we get large demand, there's always been some requests of, well, maybe would you consider doing this twice a year? So we haven't done that yet, but there's certainly been, it fills very quickly each year. I will tell you that. So.
And where is this training taking place at?
So the trainings will all be located, with the exception of the 4th one, at the Southwest Research and Extension Center in Garden City, Kansas. That's where I'm located at in my office there. So we'll be in Garden City.
For people who do want to get registered, when do they for sure have to have it by, but recommend to do it sooner versus later?
Yeah, do it sooner versus later is always recommended, because it does fill to capacity very quickly. So March 25th is kind of our registration deadline. That's actually the Monday prior to the start of the course on Friday. So I've pushed that back about as far as I can for folks to make sure we get them signed up. In terms of registration details, this is listed on ksubeef.org. You also see some of our flyers that'll be out there. Most of the feed yards and some of our organizations in Western Kansas, those should be receiving a postcard in the mail here very shortly. It has a QR code, so the registration is online. You can simply take your smartphone, scan through that, or any other electronic device, and it'll walk you through the registration there, and we'll get you signed up.
Justin, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us some information about this upcoming OSHA training.
All right, thank you.
That was Extension Beef Cattle Specialist in Garden City, Justin Waggoner. I will put a link in today's show notes if you'd like to learn more about this OSHA course. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by Director of the Land Use Survey at Kansas State University's Agricultural Economics Department, Leah Sudel, to remind us about this Kansas Custom Rates Survey for people to fill out. And Leah, what is this survey?
It's the 2024 version of the Kansas Custom Rates Survey that's done every other year. It's funded by the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and we conduct it to gather information for folks around Kansas to get an idea what rates are being charged for custom operations for like hauling and harvesting, for tillage work, for haying, and on and on.
What people do you recommend take the time to take this survey?
Oh, gosh, any custom operators that we can get to take the survey is fantastic. Also, producers who may provide custom services or pay for custom services. Either one of those. Landowners, co-op, if they're providing custom services to their members, any of those folks would be great providers of information for us.
And what information should they maybe have ready before they start this survey?
So we try to ask for rates in a variety of ways so that they're not having to search for information. A lot of the rates are dollars per acre, or we provide the option to give us a flat rate. Generally, try to be pretty flexible on the responses and provide an other option if, honestly, in case there's something outside the norm that they charge.
If producers are thinking about this survey, how long does it take them?
I would like to say 5 minutes, but I can't say that because it asks for a lot of information, and it's all very valuable. And between 15, honestly, just flat out, hate to say it, but between 15 and 20 minutes.
If producers are willing to take this survey, which you encourage them to do so, where can they find it?
So the link, and this is, it sounds strange, but it is tiny URL, tinyurl.com/custom2024.
Once again, that was Director of the Land Use Survey Office at K-State, Aaliyah Soodle. I will also put a link to the Kansas Custom Rate Survey in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be back with more ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our Tuesday show discussing price discovery. And then to talk about it, we're joined by K-State Flinchbaugh Agricultural Policy Chair, Jenny Ifft. Jenny, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Jenny, price discovery just recently ended for ag producers.
Right. The prices that are used to set the crop insurance guarantees for spring planted crops was officially released last Friday.
And it is now official. And what are some of those prices?
Right. Well, I'm going to focus on corn and soybeans. Sorghum prices are pretty close to corn right now. So everything is down from last year. So corn ended at $4.66 per bushel. That's about 27% down from last spring. Soybeans ended at $11.55, and that's down as well.
And so with those numbers being down, what maybe do producers really need to keep an eye on?
Well, I looked at our crop budgets for major crops produced in Kansas, and with those prices, the average farm is still making a profit, but it's pretty narrower, and it's narrower than in previous years.
Jenny, does that mean there'd be less space financially if there was an issue on their operation?
Basically, if things go wrong, it's going to eat into their profits a lot more quickly than it would have in the past. So, if you have higher costs, if prices go down, if you end up with a yield loss, especially a shallow yield loss, that's really going to sting this year.
And so crop insurance, something really important, especially when it comes to variable costs?
Yeah. So, most farmers, if you look at their individual policies, the typical policy is about 70-75% coverage level. And that typically is going to cover your variable costs. So you can pay for your expenses, you can repay that operating loan, and that's really what it's designed to do.
And for someone who's hoping to cover a little bit more than their variable cost, is there an option that might do that?
Right. Well, yeah, definitely. There's a couple different options. So that gets into both ARC and PLC, as well as some higher coverage crop insurance policies like the supplemental coverage option. So again, that underlying revenue protection policy that's most popular here, that's going to cover most of your major expenses. If producers want to protect their profit margin, ARC and PLC might do that to a degree. There's also the supplemental coverage option or the enhanced coverage option. Supplemental coverage option takes you up to 86% coverage level from your underlying policy. Enhanced coverage option will get you up to 95%. I've come on here and talked about it before. Those are going to increase your costs quite a bit, with one important caveat. You were to take your underlying revenue protection policy, say from 70% to 85%, that could triple your premiums. So your costs go up a lot. With the supplemental coverage option, it's going to go up a lot less. So it is a little bit more cost effective if you want to get to those higher coverage levels. The key thing, though, that supplemental coverage option, those triggers are at the county level. So understanding, is our county level yields going to provide protection is an important factor in that. We do have some tools on Ag Manager.
And Jenny, you recently with Gaku and Reed put out ARC and PLC, a historic page that really shares all these different numbers from the past years.
Right. And for the past several years, Robin's been putting out a lot of great work on ARC and PLC. I've been doing some work on SCO, and we did a webinar a month ago. So in this latest edition, what we did is we compared historic payouts of both ARC and PLC, which people, that's been accessible, but we went county by county and looked at SCO premiums and indemnities so people could compare those and better understand how these policies have worked in the past.
An important thing then to maybe look at the past, but remember we are looking forward.
Yeah, I think for me, looking at these historic payouts, it's a good way to understand how these programs worked and what kind of risk protection they provided. If you're looking forward, you really need to take into account the prices today and the market outlook, and use these sort of historic tools to understand how the program works. Base acres are also a huge factor. So, ARC and PLC only pay out on base acres, where crop insurance, it can cover any production that you have.
And Jenny, as we're talking about different prices, things have been a little rough or look to be maybe on a slight downward trend for 2024.
Yeah, no, and definitely profit margins are tightening. But what's important to keep in mind for the average farmer, not necessarily for everybody, the past few years have been pretty good with relatively high prices and then in some years pretty large government payments. So if you look at this year, tightening profit margins, unfortunately, low profit margins are pretty normal for agriculture. Corn is $4.66 a bushel. In 2021, the spring price was $4.58. If you look at soybeans, $11.55 a bushel. If you look at 2021, $11.87 a bushel. So, prices are pretty similar right now to the spring of 2021. The issue is more that if everything is held constant, we're on a downward trajectory for prices. There a lot of things could change that if you had a widespread drought. Global conflict is pretty hard to predict as well.
Producers have experienced this before, and so hopefully just remaining resilient.
Yeah, if you've been farming for the past decade in Kansas, you've been through some tough years in terms of weather, tough markets. So producers are experienced with that. So, we're getting back to a period where margins are going to be pretty tight. There's a lot of ways you can manage that, whether that's really, looking at your costs really closely, making sure that, you have some working capital if things get bad. Maybe you want to look at protecting prices. So, using futures markets, some type of hedging. Crop insurance is a tool as well. So those tools are going to be especially important, again, if nothing else changes in the next few years.
As this deadline is approaching on March 15th for ARC and PLC registration, what do producers really need to go do and get done if they're wanting to do this and haven't started?
I think nearly all acreage of major crops is under a crop insurance policy. So hopefully most producers have been in touch with their crop insurance agent. If you want to try something new, I would really recommend getting to it as soon as possible. Whether it's crop insurance or ARC, these policies are complicated. So, it takes some time. It might take even a couple years to really figure out the nuances. So get started as soon as possible. I think for ARC and PLC, a lot of producers probably have already made their decision as well, but you can change it up till March 15th.
And Jenny, doing a quick switch in our conversation to discussing the Farm Bill and you giving us a quick update on kind of what you're seeing.
Well, a lot of people are working hard on the Farm Bill and making progress on some of those compromises. But on the political side, not a lot. It's still really, it's tough to fund the government these days. So that's a big factor that's making it hard to move forward, just the broader political environment that we have. And then we have this upcoming presidential election. Now, when you have upcoming elections in terms of passing, it can really work in two ways. You might have people that want to deliver a farm bill for their constituents. So that's going to make it more likely. There's also a wait and see. So if I think my party is going to maintain power or increase power, say, win the presidency or getting more houses in Congress, let's wait and see and get a farm bill that's more favorable for us. So that can work in both directions. I think the combination of the upcoming election and the political environment make it unlikely that we would have a new farm bill this year. My expectation is for another extension. This is politics, so it's hard to tell what's going to happen, and sometimes they've come up with something pretty good pretty quickly. I would also say, if you just got the ag committees in the House and the Senate, and it was just them working together, there's a lot of strong differences of opinion, different values on what should be in the farm bill, but they know how to work together to come towards compromises. So I think if it was just left up to the ag committees, we could certainly have a farm bill, but there's a lot of broader factors that come into play.
And where can people find out more information?
agmanager.info if you'd like for more information on ARC, PLC, or crop insurance choices.
Jenny, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and give us an update on price discovery and a little bit about the Farm Bill. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again.
Sounds good.
That was K-State Flinchbaugh Agricultural Policy Chair Jenny Ifft. If you'd like to find more information on this topic, I recommend you go to agmanager.info, which I will also link in today's show notes. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by Kansas Livestock Association's Scarlett Madinger as she discusses some scholarship applications that are now open through the Kansas Livestock Foundation.
Scholarship applicants through the Kansas Livestock Foundation must be graduates of a Kansas high school and enrolled at a Kansas community or senior college for the fall semester. The Merck Cartridges for Cash program offers $1,500 scholarships to Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine students and $1,000 awards to undergraduates studying animal science and planning to actively participate in livestock production. Additionally, since Haskell County KLA members turned in the most cartridges in 2023, at least one student from that county will receive a Cartridges for Cash scholarship, providing there is a qualified applicant. Hemphill Oil and Mobile Delvac will offer $1,000 scholarships through KLF. Go Bob America's Ranch Equipment also will sponsor a $1,000 award. Equity Bank is offering a $2,500 scholarship through the foundation, while Rally House is sponsoring a $1,000 award. Proceeds from the 2023 Kansas Cattlewomen Silent Auction and KLF Club Calf Sale will fund $1,000 scholarships. Stipends in the amount of $1,500 will be offered in memory of Douglas A. Lau. Glenn and Clyde Lindstrom scholarships in the amount of $1,000 also are being offered through the foundation, with preference given to students attending USD 400. A $1,000 scholarship will be offered by Scott Johnson and family. A $500 award will be offered in memory of Fred H. Woodbury, with preference given to a student residing in Chase, Franklin, Lyon, Osage, or Wabaunsee County. One application applies to all scholarships and can be accessed by going to KLA.org and clicking on Programs. All materials must be submitted by April 8th. I'm Scarlett Madinger.
We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be back with more ahead.
Listening to Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. We end today's program with this week's milk lines. In the past, lower feed costs and improved milk prices, like we're experiencing now, generally led to an expansion of the dairy herd. However, K-State dairy specialist Mike Brouk says there may be a key ingredient that's missing in 2024: excess replacement heifers. With that in mind, he suggests that dairy farmers consider what might be happening with their dairy herd in 2024 as they decide whether to participate in the USDA's Dairy Margin Coverage Program.
Today I'd like to visit with our Kansas dairy producers concerning our dairy heifer supply and the future of dairy expansion. I know most of you are enjoying some improved milk prices compared to what we were experiencing about 6 months ago. And we've also seen a lowering of feed prices as we've moved into 2024. In the past, when we've seen lowering of feed prices and improved milk prices, we generally see an expansion of the dairy herd because we have improved margins. However, as we look to the future in 2024, there's a key ingredient that may be missing, and that's excess replacement heifers. As we've looked at our dairy situation in the end of 2023, we saw a decrease in the cow herd across the United States. We did see an increase in the milk production per cow, which resulted in a slight increase in total milk production. However, cow slaughter continued to remain high through most of 2023. This was due to the high market value of these animals. We've also seen an increase in the use of beef semen to create crossbreed heifers and bulls for the beef market. This has been an important increase in revenue on our dairy farms because these calves that are crossbred with beef are generally worth somewhere between $200 and $400 more than a straight-bred Holstein animal. So this has added to our bottom line in the dairy industry and has caused us to produce more of these crossbred animals. So the result of all of this, a smaller cow herd as well as an increased use of beef semen on our dairy animals, has resulted in a decrease in the number of heifers that are actually available to serve as replacements or to provide animals to fill new dairy barns. In fact, at the present time, our dairy heifer inventory across the United States is actually at a 20-year low. This will slow the growth of expansion, and the increase in dairy heifer value that we've seen in the last few months will continue to slow that expansion even more. Now, why do we need to be concerned about this at this time? Well, as we look to the future, USDA has announced the opening of the Dairy Margin Coverage Program. Deadline for signing up for that program for 2024 will be April 29th. So as you start to consider whether or not you're going to sign up for the program, I think it's important that you consider what might be happening with our dairy herd in 2024. While there'll be an increase in raw milk value, as we've seen in recent months, and likely that is to continue, and we will also see a decrease in feed prices, particularly with some of the harvest reports we're getting from South America at the current time. So these two things will tend to increase the dairy margin as calculated in the program. So for those of you that received payments, and many producers did receive payments for most of the months in 2023, may be a different story in 2024. Predictions are that our cow herd is going to grow slow. Raw milk supplies will continue to be tight as we move through 2024. And as a result of that, it may be that the margin situation in 2024 actually looks quite a bit different than it did in 2023. This is Mike Brouk with Research and Extension, encouraging our dairy producers to consider where we might be heading with the size of our dairy herd as we move through 2024.
Thanks, Mike. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.